Welcome back, Sapiens, to another episode of Future Conversations with Nerks, where today we are going to be talking about something that we've been wanting to talk about for a long time. So, Kendrick, why are our kids stupid today and unprepared for the future? Let's talk about education. What's going on? What do you feel like the current state of the education system is?
The current state of the education system, I think we all recognize at this point. I mean, you talk to your friends, you talk to your parents, you talk to students in school now. It's a mess, giant mess. It's very challenging for both the student and the teacher. Culturally, school has not evolved in a direction that I think
it has not.
Prepares the student for life outside of school, and also prepares the teacher to handle either the large class size that they have to deal with no support, or the multifaceted curriculum that they're expected to teach.
Well, before we jump into that, let's talk about why the students and teachers are not prepared for the ever-changing world, because this is something that we actually talked about as a theory. I think the theory of accelerated returns actually ties into how quickly our society is changing. And because of that, I believe that it is difficult for not just the student and the teacher, but the parent to also keep up with what skills the school should be teaching their child to make sure their children are successful for the new future. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you want to tie this to the law of accelerated returns. I see what you're trying to do, but in a way, yes. Society, which is in this ever-evolving feedback loop with our technology, has continued to evolve. But so let's go back to World War I. Previous to World War I, you had a school system which was pretty much run by the states. The states got to kind of control the
curriculums
for the students based on the state. You get to World War I, somewhere in the, let's say, 1914, 1920, United States of America kind of had a nationalized approach to the school system where they wanted to model everything pretty much the same. They added their propaganda, their pamphlets, make the students anti-German, make them ready to live in a society that just pushed a anti-German propaganda, get them ready for the military that they may enter if they're not entering some type of workforce in the then Industrial Revolution. So to sum it all up, the United States of America kind of standardized our school system, and we never left that place. And so there has been no dynamic approach to education on a large scale. You have your private schools that do try to change the model. You do have those small schools like Jeff Bezos created a school in California, I believe, or in Washington, which takes a different approach to learning. But the general public who sends their kids to public school,
their kids are not stuck in a system that hasn't evolved.
That's been around for the last 100 years without any real change.
And it makes sense. So as a teacher, though, a parent, a teacher and a parent in a school system, you go from in the 90s with the advent of the internet coming out, people getting on there, and then students testing that out. And then soon later after that, we have smart devices. We have the whole, Web 2 with social media and students getting into that. And then students being creators because they want to put content from MySpace to Facebook and so on and so forth. We've been, as a society, especially in the 90s, we have just moved so fast in culture and technological advancement. I remember being in college and I knew more about marketing than the marketing professors did at the university because we were actually building content for these Web 2 platforms while they were still talking textbook marketing for an industry that was about to go out. So that's how I see like teachers and students being left behind, because the world is changing so rapidly.
Yeah, the world is changing rapidly, and how students learn has also changed. You went from a world that, you're used to reading from a textbook. Shit, reading itself was magical.
Well, that was a new technology. The printing press. I mean, the ability to.
Well, that was a while ago.
No, but I'm saying like with the advent of textbooks, and then the whole library system, like that was the newest thing. That is where you went to go seek information, and then that changed.
Yes, over the next couple of 100 years, that definitely changed. But that's what people were used to. That was their one source of information outside of like experiential, which they gained from going outside and just doing
something, trade.
But then you get introduced to the radio, you get introduced to television, you get introduced to video games, you get introduced to the internet.
Yeah.
And so with each one of those changes in society, under the lens, you also get a generation after generation after generation that experiences a new modality for learning new content or concepts, context, and the school system never evolved with it. So
that is why today we have teachers that, instead of trying to figure out a way to embrace adding generative AI into their curriculums, they are pushing back against it.
Well, I mean, it's more than just generative AI. I mean, you're all the way at 2020 at this point. I mean, 2023 at this point. Like, even going to gaming, like there was a study that came out that said that students or young adults who played video games, specifically historical video games, you think of Call of Duty or Metal Gear Solid or James Bond, anything that had to do with real life, real events in the past, they had a higher retention of that information than going into the school and reading it through a textbook.
Yeah.
God, I got to find the study, but it was basically labeled something like students who play video games more adept at remembering historical information than the students who learn it in the classroom. And that's telling. And it also shows that students underwent a new way of learning information, which was more experiential, putting them in that space, allowing them to go through that time period where they are walking around, interacting with people, is far more powerful than sitting down and reading something in a textbook. You read this paragraph, you read that paragraph. Okay, let's take a test on that.
Yeah.
And the school just really suffered to get ahead of that. Same thing with math, same thing with science.
And we both identify that. I think anyone watching this would be able to just tell that something needs to change with the school system.
Yeah.
So now the question, we've talking about the problem, what is the solution to that? Like, what if you had a school today, not tomorrow, not 10 years from now, but if you had a school today, or if you had a child today that you are trying to prepare for their future, how would you do that? What would you look at? What technologies would you use? What could the parents use or be aware of to make sure that their children are getting the best opportunity maybe to self-educate if it's not being done in the school?
Well, so one, let's look at root causes. I think that's the first thing we need to look at. And let's look at the students who do not stay in school. A lot of schools have low retention when it comes to students staying in school. And why is that?
Boredom.
Boredom. I mean, you ask these kids, what about school made you leave? And they were bored. It wasn't interesting. So what is interesting to them? What
not being connected with?
Exactly. So that's the first thing we have to look at. What's engaging, and are they going home and doing something that does pique their interest?
Yeah.
And if they are, what is that thing? And so that's the first thing I would want to look at. But Listen, I think we have a lot of studies. Actually, I can pull a few up. I couldn't memorize all of them, but like in terms of experiential learning, which I just talked about, in 2009, there was a study by Janet Kolb that found that students who engaged in experiential learning, such as internships or study abroad programs, reported higher learning gains than their peers who didn't.
Yeah.
A study published in the Journal of Psychology and 2014 found that students who participated in hands-on science activities showed improved understanding and retention compared to students who only learned through traditional lectures. Same thing in 2011 found that experiential learning led to improved critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills. So what's the best platform we have today when it comes to experiential learning?
Virtual reality.
I would argue virtual reality and augmented reality, where you can literally hijack someone's senses and put them in environments. Right. I mean, I think the best example of this would be historical events, history classes. I think you have an opportunity to use this also with augmented reality, with science, anatomy,
I agree,
chemistry, biology, and physics, to enhance someone's understanding of the natural world around them. And so using these tools, virtual reality, augmented reality, allows you to get a far more advanced experiential learning experience than honestly anything else I might be able to think of, except
video game
or video games as well. So I probably would incorporate a level of that into a school that I started.
Kids learn more through Hogwarts Legacy than they have in their school system.
I mean that
you pay more attention in those classes than you do in school.
That's true. Like, geez, I mean, that's true. You pay more attention to a video game school system, learning herbology from Madam, I forgot her name, than you would in an actual class.
But you're hitting the kids where their interest is.
Exactly.
And if you can slide in education through entertainment, then that's a win. But it's not just those platforms with VRs and video games, but also technology. One of the biggest frustrations that I've heard from 3 different teachers that I've spoken with is a student's lack of attention, because their attention wants to be in TikTok, their attention wants to be in their mobile devices and on their screens. Yeah. And I've always had a stance on not saying that technology is making our kids dumber or technology is the problem. I think personally, especially watching my sister grow up around technology, is that these kids are using the devices that they're going to be using in order to be successful in whatever career they're doing. But what's lacking is the proper guidance on how to use these tools. If you give a kid a screen just so that they can be quiet for a little bit, or so you can remove their attention to something else, they're going to use that the same way their peers are using it. If there's no guidance to how to actually use that technology, then what do you expect for a child to do but to do what everyone else using that tablet or using that device is doing? I don't think is a problem with the student's relationship with the tech. I think it's just a lack of guidance on how to be the most productive with the technology.
I mean, but nobody really has that guidance. Like, social media is fairly new, only sitting at if I decide to count MySpace, sitting at 19, 18 years old.
But that's not true, because you have that guidance. Like, how do you use those things to educate yourself?
Yeah, but you have to have a deeper understanding of what's going on when you're using social media and how many people are actually deep diving. Like, if I was
that's my point.
If I was a teacher and I was that focused or interested, maybe I'd find out. But like, there are algorithms, and the algorithms allow you to the algorithms decide what you're looking at on those platforms. Yes. So maybe teaching your students, but they probably wouldn't care, to be quite honest, but maybe teaching your students that, hey, your decisions of videos, whatever videos you choose, is what you're going to see on the devices. But I don't think it has anything to do with social media, to be quite honest. I think it's less about that and more of the tools that the teachers and that the school system decide to use when it comes to teaching.
I'm talking about the demonization that teachers are putting on students today, and their lack of interest for the classroom is because all their attention wants to be in these screens.
And so teachers should probably, I may get butchered for this, teachers should probably look at, if we're talking about attention, ad agencies. Ad agencies don't complain that, oh, people left VHS and now we have to work to like, they go where the eyeballs are. And so where are the kids' eyeballs? Oh, they're in the screens. Oh, they're on TikTok. What could you do as a teacher? Maybe. What could your school do as an organization in order to put content out there for the students to learn? Like, it's a lot more work.
It is a lot more work, yeah.
But like, it's the attention game. It's the attention game. You are not going to motivate a child. You're not going to motivate a person who has spent the last decade of their life interacting with content in a certain way by trying to introduce an old medium that just is no longer effective and or interesting. You're not. And so, I mean, you can demonize the technology as much as you want, but you look as foolish as the Luddites who were demonizing the textile industry 100, 200 years ago. So
what are your thoughts on the whole pushback with OpenAI? I mean, Chat GPT being used in the classroom.
That's absolutely foolish. As foolish as it was to demonize Wikipedia when it first came out. Chat GPT, which you're going to find, because this is the future. LLMs are 100% the future. Like if you think we're rolling this clock backwards, you're absolutely wrong. I was reading a podcast or listening to a podcast earlier yesterday when they sent out that a declaration saying that we need to stop the development of AI and let's get everybody
fools.
They're fools. Well, they were trying to get everybody on board, and that memo got to Sundar Pichai's desk, the CEO of Alphabet, and he said,
the CEO of Google.
Alphabet.
No, Larry Page and Sergey Brin are the CEOs of Alphabet.
Did they just return
to Google?
To Alphabet?
No, they've been the CEO and COO of Alphabet. Sundar Pichai is the CEO of Google. Alphabet is the parent company of Google.
He is the chief executive officer of Alphabet Incorporated and its subsidiary Google. He's the CEO of both.
Ooh.
Yeah.
My mistake. Again, I've been proven wrong.
But that memo got to his desk, and he said there is simply nothing I can do because in the current capitalistic society that we live in, Google can stop developing AI. They can go ahead and hit that red button and stop in order to give the world a chance. But that's not going to stop every person. Yeah. And so all they're going to do is fall behind and lose profit. Yeah. And in a profit game that we live in today, they're just not taking that chance.
But talking about AI and the education system, and you have all these professors in college and teachers talking about we need to make sure that students are not using Chat GPT, or it's going to get even worse when Microsoft finally drops their Microsoft 360 Copilot.
And so that's the world we live in. And teachers, I don't blame teachers. I don't blame principals. I do. It's hard. It's hard to blame them. Like, I think they can take some responsibility. No, yes, they can take some responsibility, but
because we've seen this story before.
But they're not giving the tools and resources in order to be successful. And nobody is being honest with them and saying, hey, the world is changing rapidly. And on top of that, we already know that humans only think linearly. Linearly. So this exponential growth that we're seeing in an intelligence explosion, they're not tracking this. So I can't blame teachers because
Go ahead, prove your point, because I will blame teachers. Go ahead.
Because they look at this as students just trying to cheat. This is some new fancy gimmick.
We've seen this story before.
New fancy gimmick, new fancy toys that students are using in order to get over on the system, to be more or to be lazy and not have to actually do the work. Where you see other people, example Khan from Khan Academy, or other, there are even some private schools and some universities that say, hey, let me redesign my curriculum knowing that my students will use Chat GPT, because Chat GPT can help them understand a concept. If I give them the concept, Chat GPT can help them understand it.
Yes.
Or integrate Chat GPT into their own curriculum. Use Chat GPT in order to write or deduce or answer this problem and get it to show you how. Like, there's ways to integrate it. And
why are teachers pushing? My whole thing is, why are teachers pushing back on Chat GPT and not, instead of incorporating it?
Because they don't know what it is.
And that's their fault. If you're working in a position where you are getting our students to be well prepared for their future, and you are not doing your due diligence to learn about these technologies that are going to be here for the future, it's ridiculous. It's like the whole calculator situation. Don't use calculators in the math class because you need to learn how to work that shit out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but if you go to it, everyone's using calculators. Everyone is on your phone. They told us not to do it, and the future did what? It proved them wrong. Everyone takes out their phone and uses their calculator, or they say, hey, Google, what's 2 times 2? And
2 times 2 is 4.
Case in point, just we have these artificial intelligence or computers all around us that are able to give us these answers without us having to do the calculation. And the same thing is going to be done with Chat GPT.
Yeah, but your whole point, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but like, listen, I like to consider myself a singularian. I like to consider myself a transhumanist. In some cases, earlier in my collegiate career, I even considered myself a futurist. And not only do I have to study the trends and past of technology, but I have to study the trends and past of human behavior. And so looking at where we are today in history, for you to say it is the teacher's fault puts as much egg on your face as it does the teachers who don't understand this technology either. There was a time in 2012 when I was running around waving a white flag saying invest in Bitcoin, and you did not.
And I learned from
you learned from it. There was a time where I was running around and I even told you, Keenan, don't buy that Honda, buy that Tesla. And you did not. There was a time when I have brought many technologies. No, it's not different.
It is different.
It's the same.
No, it's not. It's different.
There are
times. It's a different situation.
And our timeline where I have urged both my family, my friends, to take advantage of technological advances. And because they were not completely mainstream, I was ignored. And then later down the line, the technologies were seen as these new novel inventions that will usher in new opportunities for whoever it was that discovered it at the time. So for you to say teachers is their fault does not even fit your model of how you understand or act on information in the past.
That's not true. You're comparing different situations and trying to make them the same, and that's not true. The Bitcoin thing is a case in point. I was wrong, and I learned from that experience. Me buying a Honda versus buying a Tesla had nothing to do with my lack or conviction that electric cars are the future and I need to get on board.
Oh, no.
It had everything to do.
Okay.
It had everything to do with how much is the Honda, how much was the Tesla, how much was I going to be paying monthly for that?
No. It has nothing to do. And let's set the record straight. This has nothing to do with. Don't play coy. This has nothing to do with a Tesla being an electric vehicle. If that was the case, I would have promoted you to get a Mach-E or something just to claim you had it. This has everything to do with the fact that Tesla is pushing the only actionable or real life AI that you can use in the world. They're the only company pushing that. They are the only company saying we have full autonomous driving. Is it actually full self-driving? No. But the amount of updates that they
That
push,
had nothing to do with my decision not to get a Tesla.
that had everything to do with me pushing you to get it. And I said that. And I said the value of your Tesla, if you bought in, we are getting way off topic.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
the value
you're
of your
comparing
Tesla would be astronomically higher
in
the next decade than it would.
I understand. I feel like you're reaching respectfully. I feel like you're reaching because when Chat GPT came out, my first thing was, how do I learn how to use this in the workplace? How do I find out how to use this in education? And I've been doing so. Mm-hmm. So it's different. I learned from my Bitcoin mistake and I'm applying it today. When I say it's the teacher's fault, or it's a mistake that the teachers are making, I shouldn't be as blunt to say like it's their fault, or I shouldn't say that it's their fault. I should say they're making a mistake and not trying to find a way to incorporate this into the classroom. I was gonna use a case that I had seen before with the effectiveness of Chat GPT in education, but go ahead, because it's. I understand your point. I think it's a mistake, though.
But it's not just you. It's the history of humanity in general. I see these trends all the time, which is why I'm not going to blame teachers. I see us hit a new technology. I see what's happening. It's so blatantly in front of us, obvious, and it's in front of us right now that I can pull excuses and examples out of thin air. What is happening right now in the world of virtual reality? What is happening right now currently? How do people feel about virtual reality? What is the mainstream?
People are saying that the headsets are uncomfortable and the metaverse phase was a bubble and all this other stuff.
And it's not going to...
It's not going to do anything.
Yep.
It's not going to go anywhere, which we know that it hasn't even started yet.
Well, but that's my point. This happens all the time. Happened with the initial cell phone, happened with television. It happens all the time. So to sit here and blame teachers for not adapting or jumping on this Chat GPT or this LLM model.
Can you please explain to the people that are listening what an LLM is? Because you keep using these abbreviations.
Large language model. So it's a you can call it is an artificial intelligence or an algorithm that is able to let's say base terms, able to take a request that you have and it's able to interpret speech. As a model, or it's a computer, easy way to think about it is a computer software that has trained itself to learn the human language and has gone through a database of hundreds of thousands of billions of trillions of words to teach itself how to speak, so that when you ask it a question, it understands the context and can break out your sentences and then give you exactly the answer you were looking for. And that's, I think that's the best way to sum it up. Think of it as I'm trying to find a great example. I like to give pop media references.
Jarvis.
Rosie. Yeah, Jarvis. There we go. Jarvis from Iron Man. I think that'd be a good example of a LLM, not necessarily something placed in a robot like CP3O, but a artificial intelligence that can understand speech. Rosie from the Jetsons
was able to interpret based on a language model.
Still had an artificial body though. Like these large language models are specifically algorithm software, virtual. So I think Jarvis would be the best way to describe it or to give an example of something in pop culture that is similar. But God, I got away from what you were asking me before. It's not the teacher's fault.
With that being said, let's get away from whose fault it is. What would you do today?
Oh, no, 100%. I would. The products have to be built, but I'd be using a combination of these LLMs and the experiential design from virtual reality and augmented reality. And the easy thing about virtual reality is you can build the content right now. I can hire somebody to build a course curriculum.
You're going too high. I need you to come back down here. If you were a parent, how would you get your child to use Chat GPT to supplement their education?
So when it comes to using the tools of any LLM, large language model, AI, Chat GPT, if that's the one we want to focus on, I think I would I would introduce it to my kid, but I wouldn't introduce it to them in relation to education. I think I would show them the tool and have it answer any question they have. I might create activities for my kid to understand certain things or learn certain things. And if they can solve these puzzles, riddles, or learn something through these tools, then there's some reward for them at the end of the day. I'd show them that we can use it in order to create different types of food by gaining ingredients or recipes. I would show them, hey, their favorite video game, maybe it can give insight on how to clear certain levels or how to achieve or unlock certain things. Like I would show it as a valuable resource in everyday life. And I think toward the end of the teaching, I would show it, by the way, this can also help you overcome some of your limitations or barriers that you have in school as well. And so I would introduce it in that way, because I think the moment that you make it specifically a tool for schooling, you might lose them and they might have least interest in Chat GPT because they will just find it as another thing to represent or another tool to help them in a education system that they barely want to be a part of anyway, or that they find boring. And that is if my kid is actually bored in school. He might find education and the acquisition of knowledge to be one of the most enticing things in the world. If he does, then I've done a great job. But that's the kind of direction that I would take with introducing my kid to those tools. You can't make it about school. Of course, it can help them in school, but you've got to make it about life in general. This is a tool you can use anywhere and everywhere. You want to plan a trip with your friends? Use Bard, use Chat GPT.
Help you problem solve.
Help you problem solve. Yes, it's the ultimate problem solving tool. So
there was a story in the book, AI 2041, chapter 3, Twin Sparrows, that illustrated what happens when you give a child some form of AI to use. And it's going to be our future. Kids might be paired later on in the future with the AI of their own to help them with child development and just development in general through life. So now is a good time to get them to just understand how to have those conversations with AI to help them problem solve. But another tool you said that you would use is virtual reality. And how would you get your kid to learn through VR?
So VR is a bit. So VR is not. I'm not going to say it's challenging, but VR has its opportunities. And right now, like the biggest opportunity for virtual reality is assuming that it can sit on the same level as current video games or games in general. VR is limiting in most experiences because it has you by yourself, where video games has a social dynamic to them. And so introducing virtual reality as it stands today, I would have to find very, very interesting applications that I think my child would enjoy from a solo experience, understanding like deep diving or going through on their own.
Yeah.
Now, when we do get to a place where virtual reality is more social and they can integrate their friends and I can be involved too in another room, et cetera, then I think it'll be a lot easier to bring people in. There is something isolating with VR as it stands now. And of course, we have the applications like Horizons and what is the game called? Lone? No, not Echo. Echo? I forgot. The disc game. Anyway. And then you have Beat Saber and like all these other things, but
there's so many resources I think that people don't realize they have for their kids. I I don't know. There's the traveling apps in VR where you can experience different places if you wanted to explore like Egypt and stuff like that. The 3D cameras that they use there, Chat GPT, Google Bard, Khan Academy. You want your kids to start learning how to program, you can go to codeacademy.com, teamtreehouse.com, and how I'm using Chat GPT today is I'm taking a data analysis certificate, and instead of having to wait for the instructor to get back to me, I can just go to Chat GPT, ask it a question that I hung up on, and ask it to explain it to me so that I can get a better comprehension of what I'm being asked. So students have a lot of these resources now that they're just not aware that they have access to, or parents aren't aware that they have access to help their child through their education today, to be able to learn more or dive deeper into some of the interests that they may have. I mean, when you talk about content creations, there's more AI tools in Adobe Premiere. There's more AI tools in Adobe After Effects. There's more AI tools in the video editing app CapCut. There's more AI tools in the program I was showing you today, where it'll take your horizontal video and then it'll cut it up and do the stuff for you. So kids that want to get into content creation a little bit easier, Photoshop with generative AI, and it's. I'm saying all that, even though these are like systems of tools, like that require skills, it's still now is a better time than ever to really dive into like what your kids' interests are and try and incorporate some type of like learning through whatever they're interested in. Because AI is making it easier for them to get into those spaces and to teach them once they're in those spaces. That's the point, I guess, that I'm trying to make.
Well, so my question to you is why? Why would it be important for your child to use Chat GPT in order to be successful in life?
Oh man, successful in life. So I don't know if it's I don't know if it's that heavy. What I will say is the thing that I keep hearing people say all over Instagram, which is you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to those people that have partnered with AI to become more productive. And technology, as more technology comes out, we've always adapted technology to help us become more productive human beings. I think that's true in both corporate, and I think that's true in education as well.
Okay.
So that would be my answer, is because we want.
And I get that you've listened to podcasts about this topic and seen people's videos on YouTube. Now I'm going to ask you again, from your perspective, with all these copilots coming out, you don't have to tell me about how it's going to make people more productive. Why do you think it is important for your child or a group of young individuals in today's time to use ChatGPT, Bard, Microsoft Copilot, Bing, any large language model to be successful in life?
To be successful in life, I don't know if today you need, the word need.
That's crazy. I thought you were an enthusiast.
I am an enthusiast, but need?
Yes, 100%.
So I mean, the reason why I'm having a hard time answering that question with the word need is because there's some kid out there who's low income, who goes to school just to eat on an everyday basis, and is not like, he's not at school to learn, and he may not have access to Chat GPT. It doesn't mean that he won't be successful. So this word need, why would I want my kids to have access to Chat GPT in general, is so that they can have access to all of knowledge. They have a resource, a mentor, a tutor to be able to teach them anything. There are no limits to what they can design, build, do, be exposed to. Like it's everything that they could potentially want. Is the Pandora's box of knowledge.
Okay, and what will that, like, we're going 10 years out from today. You've got Chat GPT 10, probably higher than that, to be quite honest. I mean, this thing is building.
I don't think we'll get to a Chat GPT 10.
You're right. It'd be probably called GPT 10, but it's designing videos for you. It's on Midjourney 5's level right now. It's like so productive that you are God. When you're using these tools at this point, you using these models to 10 years from now, you using these models, you going back in time and having those same capabilities in 2005, people will probably think you're the next Einstein.
Yeah.
So explain to me and explain to everybody listening and watching why it's going to be important for children or young people to understand how to use these tools now, because I promise you that they will be very important to someone's success in life in the next 10 years.
Did I not just do that?
Well, you did, but you said, I don't think that they need them to be successful. Well, let me ask you this then too. If someone doesn't have any access to the internet today, from the time they were born to the time they turn 20, what are the chances that they'd be successful? We talk about AI. Some people would equate it to the emergence of the internet. So I'm going to ask you again, if your child has access to these tools, why is it important for the success in the next decade to understand how to use these tools and understand how to use them in the next decade?
Well, I've explained why it's important, why I would think it'd be important for children to use it today. My pushback was the word need in order to be successful.
Okay, well then, if you don't have access to the internet from 2010 to 2020, what are the chances you'll be successful?
From 2010 to 2020?
Yep.
You'll still have a high chance of success.
Without any access to the internet.
Yeah.
In the United States of America.
I mean, there's people that come over here. What if someone came over here when they were 32 years old in 2030 and just got access to Chat GPT and the internet and got obsessed and learned how to use it?
Yeah. Now, I'm saying you've never used the internet.
Yes.
From 2010 to 2020.
Yes.
What are the chances that you're successful in the United States of America?
How old is this person? There's so many parameters.
Let's say 18.
It's low.
Exactly. Okay.
It's very low.
Cool. So we have this understanding.
If you're 18,
yes,
it's very low.
So you are 18 years old in 2020.
Okay.
What are the chances that you will be successful in the next 10 years, decades, without having used any large language model compared to that of your peers? Maybe. Or where you would predict that society would be in the next decade?
I would say I'd say it's low, but it's not impossible.
Why wouldn't it be?
Because people weren't using Warren Buffett didn't have a large language model. Like we used the index internet. We used indexing on a static website. Like that's.
So I want you to go the next 10 years without using a large...
I'm not going to do that.
Why wouldn't you?
Because I need access to the information. It makes you more effective. You can run circles against someone who doesn't have this technology.
In the next 10 years.
Yes.
So but then on the other hand, you're saying someone can be successful in the next 10 years from 2023 to 2033 without using these...
I'm conflicted
okay.
by old ways.
Yep.
My old ways don't want me to acknowledge that you need technology to be successful.
You do.
But in the next 10 years, with the world changing as quickly as it will, I have to say that, yeah, the chances... If you're not using these generative AI platforms in the next 10 years, there's going to be people using a quarter of the features from these days that are going to run circles around you. You won't be able to get a job. Oh, you don't know how to start off a prompt?
Yeah.
Oh, baby, you can go next. We ain't got the time
to teach you.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, and if you look at these tools as they exist, and I know a lot of the audience may not know about this product, but there's something called God GPT.
I'm not a fan.
And what God GPT is that you give it a request, and then it will create its own prompts to give you the ultimate answer. So let's say I tell God GPT, I'm trying to plan a trip from Australia. God GPT will create a list of prompts, and then it'll accomplish each prompt individually and then give you a total package of all the answers and everything you need. It will plan events for those specific dates. You can tell it also, I'm planning a trip with my family. It will get different events for your kids versus your you and your partner. It will understand the prices that this will cost and this will cost. Like, it will put a whole package together. And this is like early. So you give that 10 years too. You're asking it to do things like manage your finances on a yearly degree. So I don't want to hijack this.
You're mixing
I don't
up
want to hijack
two different tools. It's God mode, and then there's Auto GPT.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, God mode and Auto GPT. But I don't want to hijack the education topic, but I'm just saying I need you to explain to the audience that if you're not using these tools, you will be left behind.
Yeah,
you will
that's
be
true.
left behind. I got to pull out my Trump hands for this. You'll be left behind so bad in society, specifically the United States of America, that you not adopting these tools in the next 10 years will be like somebody coming from 1980 dropping down in 2010. They won't understand a thing that's going on. They won't. They won't. They won't know what a smart device is. They won't understand a lot. Social media will be a foreign concept to them. It would be bad. It would take them a while to catch up.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong.
They won't even have a concept of the internet.
It's hard to talk in definitives though, but the point that you're trying to make, I do understand. Like, if you're not using some form of AI tool. Yeah.
And so now that we've got him to admit that you need some level of large language model, Chat GPT, Bard, or Microsoft Copilot, or any Copilot of that matter, let's get down to the nitty gritty of what this conversation is actually about. Education in the United States of America is going to it's going to issue a change. It's going to go through such a radical and disruptive change that I don't think the public school system will be able to keep up. And you will see not a large amount, but you see a higher amount of people going into a private school curriculum or a homeschool curriculum, because it will provide their child more value than the public school system can, because the public school system is not going to be able to keep up with the pace of change. And so what you'll have are homeschooled individual or private school individuals with a higher degree of retention, of keeping their students involved in the classroom, and also higher test scores and grades than you will in the public school
I don't know.
arena.
I don't know. I don't think that's true.
Okay. What's your argument?
Teachers
Teachers what?
are not prepared, and it doesn't matter if they're public or private.
Well, I say private because I think private schools can emerge. Like, I think we can build private schools that say, hey, you give us $2,000 and these are the tools we're giving your students to be successful.
Yeah, if it's a private school and they do what Amazon's about to do,
Yeah.
and Walmart, and get rid of bodies, then yeah, like if we're opening a private school and we just have administrators and we're letting AI teach the students, oh hell yeah. Oh yeah. But putting teachers in a system to be accountable for the success of a classroom of 15 students, that's the old model and it's not going to work. So if you're talking about a private school that's still practicing that, but trying to implement these new tools, I don't think it's going to work. But if we're talking about
I'm using private schools because they have far more flexibility and dynamic ability to integrate these new technologies
I agree.
without getting pushback from a board, a school system.
I agree.
So I think when it comes to homeschooling and these private school systems, they'll have a leg up on these slow changing public school systems.
But we can't, the same minds used to create the problem cannot be, we gotta, unless you are a new age teacher that believes that you are only there to supplement the collaboration between the AI and the student, if you accept that as a teacher, your job is nothing more than to be there as a teaching aid for the AI, then if that's your belief, you're good. Come to our private school and we're going to outperform public. But if you believe that you are the main person in charge of the education and AI is just an assistant to what you got going on, I don't think that's going to be a successful model.
I don't think anybody's, I'm not betting on that model either. But what I'm saying is over the next 10 years, you're going to see a disruption in the school system.
Continue.
You're going to see a true disruption in the school system, and you are going to see what seem like you're going to see what seems like unparalleled geniuses in the school system, and you'll wonder how the fuck do kids get this smart? And it's the tools that they're using. And I think you'll begin to see this in the next decade. Like I imagine that you will see the amount of children that just excel, even if it's a small percentage, the amount that they excel in STEM curriculums will just take off. Yeah. Because they will have the individual focus. Imagine the first person, and it might be Khan, but it might be someone else. Imagine the first person who builds an LLM specifically for a school system. For a school system. I mean, Western Branch, going to Western Branch, they build an LLM specifically for Western Branch Middle, Churchland, and one other school. And that AI's job is to remember every student's name that it works with because they have a login, where they fall in the school system, what grade they are in, and what grade they should move to the following year. And like someone developing that already changes the game. Yeah. Now we're adding the next level of experiential learning.
Personalized education system.
Personalized education, yes. Adaptive learning platforms. That's essentially what it is. Now you take someone who says, you know what? I can create, and it might be tutor businesses. I can create better experiential design games or learning curriculums in virtual reality than I can build video games. And ed tech for virtual reality. Yeah. And you integrate the two.
Not in AR. In AR.
AR or VR.
Yeah, AR or VR. Yeah. But if once that pops, once you have AR platforms, or I guess it'll be mixed reality, but once you add that to a classroom and it's AI led, that's it.
You're having children, and now hold on, because there's other factors to this.
There are.
We have to talk about the intertanglement of what was happening. You will have students, in terms of just straight knowledge and intelligence, that far outpace what we've had in the last 20 years. But on top of that, you're also working with a tool that exponentially gets more intelligent. So you're working with smarter students, but they're working with smarter tools, and they have these tools for the rest of their lives. The amount of technological change, advancements in human society and medicine, science, literature, music, cinema.
But you, when you introduce that type of technology to students, you put back into focus what I think is the most underrated skill set that is not currently being taught in public schools, which is the problem solving skill. And if you have a system designed to help kids learn how to solve problems, that seeps his way through every other aspect of education. And there was a experiment done in India with a group of underprivileged kids where they did nothing but bought them all tablets. And they gave them tablets and walked away. And once the young group of students, they learned how to open the boxes, and the researchers said they thought they were just going to play with the boxes because they had never seen these tablets before. They learned how to find the power button, and they said once they found the power button, it was over. In a week, they were singing ABCs. They said in a week, the kids were singing ABCs. And then 5 months later, the kids had jailbroken the operating system on the tablet because they had problem solved by going to YouTube and independently learning how to do that. And they didn't penalize them for doing that. They praised them for the ability to actually do something. So those kids were learning problem solving with these technology tools, and they just gave them the tools and walked away and saw what they did. But when you have guided education with the AI model, you talk about the potential of these kids to be the smartest generation ever. It's well surpassed that.
Well surpassed.
It's well surpassed anything you could possibly imagine.
And these are individual students. These are individual students with tools of unfathomable intelligence. We're not even talking about a species, synthetic intelligent species, like when we start impregnating these AIs into our own brains. Like we're not even there.
We're not even there.
We're not even there. So I think when we talk about education, I think we are going to see in the next decade, mark my words, in the next decade, we talk about these technologies and what should happen, the hoverboard and full self-driving cars and all these things, which full self-driving cars are. I got 2 updates on my Tesla in the last 2 weeks, and each upgrade improved my Tesla's ability to drive. But in the next decade, you are going to see a coupling of AI and students learning in the education system that will be absolutely insane.
That's an industry that hasn't even popped yet, and it's existing. And I don't think it's right to say it's mature, but ed tech.
Yeah,
hasn't even popped yet.
Not since Khan.
Hasn't, and Khan Academy
and all the
Khan
other
Academy
ones
but that's the surface level of how do we disrupt education through online.
Yeah, listen.
But that's not even what.
Yeah, like
and
we're talking about AI, and we also talked about experiential design. But what happens when you put that large language model in a virtual reality headset and didn't just let it go?
Like,
just let it go.
You people don't know.
You just don't understand.
I have walked through the pasture. I've seen it. I've seen it through visions. As I've done my certificates. As I've done the certificate with data analysis, and I'm online going through the lecture. I'm looking at the video. I'm doing the exercises, and the ability to be able to go to a 24/7 available tutor in Chat GPT, ask it any question that I have based on this curriculum that I'm learning, and get it to break it down as if I'm a fifth grader, and get it to show me examples to make sure that I fully understand what it is that I'm trying to learn. If you had that constantly at a low elementary school, like whatever it is, the learning rate, like and for all the students that are in these special education classes, not because it could potentially be not because they're not intelligent, but because you can't reach them in the style in which they can consume content and be engaged in that content. AI to personalize education just for an AI to be able to learn their learning style and seep that into what they're consuming, it's game changing. It's fucking amazing. I'm sorry, I'm off my soapbox, but.
And so that's what I say for the future. And by the future, I mean the next decade, there's going to be a large integration, I think, of these AIs. And they will be, as they are currently called today, copilots. And they will copilot each student. They will have all the information they need on the student. They will know if the student plays sports. They will know how they do on their homework, their test scores, et cetera, and be able to model or reconfigure their learning experience to help benefit them. They should be able to. I do believe we'll be able to have a new applications in virtual reality or augmented reality that allow you to have better experiential learning experiences. I think that students will far outpace the intelligence and capabilities of the previous generations before them. It's going to be a different playing field. And we talk about copilots and we talk about these AIs. These exist way past just the education system and the learning system. I think each teacher will have a co-pilot at some point. I remember someone joking, I think it was in the All In podcast, that it will be no, it wasn't All In. It was a podcast with Peter Diamandis, but it'll be malpractice to do most jobs without some type of co-pilot, like being a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Like if you don't have a co-pilot with you, it'll be irresponsible and basic malpractice in your job without using some type of AI.
But we're seeing this. It's so fascinating that we're seeing this in movies. We're seeing this in like iRobot and what was it, Upgrade. Where you weren't allowed to drive a car yourself. The robot had to drive for you because it's safer.
And listen, even today, while I'm driving my car, there are definitely times when I'm either tired, just mentally exhausted, or listening to a podcast and my thoughts are like completely zoned into what the person is talking about, and I have to put my car in self-driving mode because I'm either too fatigued and not really paying attention, exhausted, not looking to my surroundings, which my car will at that point do a better job getting around than I can. There's been times when I've been driving to new areas and my car actually noticed that it needed to turn over or get over on an exit or down a street. And I thought I still had some time before we turned. So my car would start braking and turn. I'm like, yo, what's going on? But realizing that it's following directions better than me. And that's just a level of co-piloting from a level of driving. So I can already see how that's particularly useful.
Yeah.
And I think overall in everyone's life, we're going to have these different co-pilots that make different tasks useful. And to go about without those co-pilots actually make you more of risk, more at risk of some type of I don't want to call it malpractice, but at risk of having more errors in decision making or actions.
Being able to eliminate human error.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about the education system, but I believe, and I'm sure you agree with this as well, that it's easier to learn something today with these tools, even if you're not in school or you're not like trying to learn something for your job. It's just easier to probably pick up on a new skill with YouTube and Chat GPT or Google Bard. These things. Education today, it's easier.
I mean, it's definitely. So what? You're trying to learn how to do a specific something. Most people go to Google, go to YouTube to try to understand. And even going through those, you have to kind of like filter through to get to specifically a good starting point or something you're trying to find.
Yeah.
Using Chat GPT, using Google Bing, or Bing, you have an opportunity to get exactly to where you want to be. So for example, I've often using gaming engines, Unreal Engine, Blender, Unity. And so there are times when I want to learn how to execute a function. For example, creating portals. If I don't know how to do it, I can easily ask ChatGPT, especially since it's been modeled or the information it's using is from 2001. There aren't really many gaps when it comes to me doing 3D design and these game engines. I can ask it specifically, hey, what are the best methods for me to, hey, can you teach me how to create a portal system in Unreal Engine using a plane? And it will run down a list of ways, and then you can say, give me an example in code, and it can give me a code example. Hey, how do I input this code into the gaming engine in order to make it work? And it'll show me how to do that. So now I have this line of code. Now it's showing me the process of how to enter it into this gaming engine in order to make it successful. Then I can come back and say, hey, this is what happens when I move my character from this plane and the result, and can you tell me what's wrong? And it will re-elaborate on the correct way. So I think that's better than me going to YouTube and hoping somebody covers the content that I'm trying to find.
Yeah,
it's definitely quicker.
Yeah,
definitely quicker.
The system overall, or not necessarily the system, the systems in which we can educate ourselves, but the openness and convenience of information, access to information, has just made it so much easier for you to be able to really learn anything.
Yeah.
I think like if you were to go to Chat GPT today and say, hey, teach me, let's begin, just teach me on a very high level how quantum mechanics work, and explain it to me as if I were 12 years old. That's an entry point. And then from there, you just build on that knowledge and get more advanced. And that's literally...
yeah, I mean, that's very helpful. And that comes back to its ability to also recall what it told you earlier in the conversation. I was on a train, and I think I was in Japan. I was going from Kyoto to Kinosaki, and out of boredom, I was just like, hey, let me see what ChatGPT can do. So I actually asked it, hey, write a curriculum for me for quantum physics, explaining quantum physics as if I was in the 5th grade. And so I just asked to build a curriculum, and it built me an entire curriculum of what we could cover, easy subjects that would introduce me to quantum physics as if I was in 5th grade. And then I asked it to go ahead and teach me the first curriculum, the first lesson that it developed. And it started teaching me or explaining small novice details about quantum physics. And then I asked it after I read it to give me a test, to which I answered questions to its test. And when I got to a question where I felt like it didn't provide that information, I just told ChatGPT, hey, you asked me this question. I don't recall us covering that in your earlier lesson plan. Can you please teach me? Can you please go back through this and teach it to me? And then it didn't say, hey, you weren't paying attention. Hey, it's there. You need to go back and read it. It didn't judge me. It didn't have an ego. It just simply went back and taught me what I said that it missed before.
Yeah.
So it does have that capability, and I think it's very powerful, and I think it's very important. And it's not stress. Listen, these systems, these algorithms are very patient because there's no rush. Well, there's nothing to make it impatient. So I agree. Like these are very, very useful tools for teaching, for learning, for understanding. I do think there is a coupling between different technologies that are definitely taking place that'll allow us to
definitely
modify and change the education system in terms of how we are learning. And even I think the subjects that we are learning, I think they're important. I just think we should probably recategorize them in other ways so that they make sense to the student population in today's time. But
I think I would really like to see a company be created, a tech company be created specifically focused on mixed reality for students. So not only do you design a very lightweight, easy to use headset, but you design the one app or one or two apps on this headset, and you run the software through a language, machine learning. You run the software through a machine learning algorithm to be able to identify what the typical classroom looks like, so it can be aware out of the box of what it should expect for its surroundings to be. And you just like focus on, I think this company should just focus on redesigning education and mixed reality. Each headset is paired with its own AI assistant, and you just go to schools and start betaing it.
I think that's a cool idea. I don't think you need to reconstruct a headset. I think you just need to come up with the software.
Well, I think the reason why I would say come up with the headset yourself, because I think that the Meta Quest 3 that's coming out is probably still too uncomfortable to wear long term, and it's not a full mixed reality headset like that. And I think you can get rid of a lot of what they pack in if you get really specific with what you're trying to accomplish with students.
Lucky Palmer just had an interview with also Peter Diamandis, actually, where and if you don't know, Lucky Palmer was the initial founder and creator of Oculus. before
is,
Facebook acquired it.
Yeah, the Oculus was the name of the headset before Facebook rebranded it to Meta.
And so Lucky credited Apple with the new launch of their new mixed reality headset.
Boo.
And said what Apple did right, which is what he tried to convince Facebook, which is now Meta, to do, is make an external CPU and battery pod. So instead of putting everything on the face, on the headset, he said have it tethered to something that you can slip in your pocket or clip to your belt strap. He said that allows the devices to be smaller and thinner so that there's less weight distribution that you have to deal with, which would make it more comfortable. Lucky Palmer has been a critic of that, and he said Apple did it right. And he said he actually praises Apple because what he thinks they're trying to do is normalize having an external battery pack and an external CPU so that they can continue to make the headset itself light and not as you don't have to worry about the weight distribution as much.
I ain't buying no Apple VR headset for my baby so that they can get burn marks all over their back from that hot ass battery.
Well, I mean, no, because Magic Leap was attempting to do the exact same thing. They had an external processing pack that you clip on your hip in order to.
Then you have a large, sweaty, wet mark on the side on your hip because.
I mean, I will say, like,
battery.
I don't know how that works playing games, which is something that Apple did not show on
their first version of this. It has a 2-hour battery life.
Well, yeah, but even with Magic Leap, like if you're playing an active game like Beat Saber or Super Hot, I don't know how practical it is to have the like things on your pocket when you're like rolling around or like moving. I don't know. It could be very practical. We just haven't seen it. So, but we'll see. The technology is there. We're entering a new era. Like, once again, we're talking about education's the change of education in the next decade. Now, I will say specifically, we've only talked about two things: large language models or adaptive learning platforms, and virtual reality and augmented reality, which would be experiential learning. There's definitely other technologies that we can talk about that influence or can impact education, especially in the next decade. But in the next decade, it is only 2033. Honestly, by the time we get there, technology would have advanced so much. We're getting closer and closer to this concept called the singularity. And the closer we get to this point of 2040, the more difficult it is to try to predict what will actually happen.
It's a horrible 2040 is just going to be a horrible time for everyone. The singularity should be feared.
No.
It should be something that we run away from screaming because it changes. Everything becomes unrecognizable. They'll put chips in between your thumb and your finger to track you. Like they're not tracking you. It's a horrible future.
The singularity is a very interesting point in human history. We've gone through two singularities already in terms of human history, from the times that humans walked out of the cave to now. One was the invent of language. The second was the invent of fire. We've already hit singularities. This will be a next singularity, but this is going to create a singularity that is unlike any of the other ones that we've seen before, due to the explosion in intelligence, nanotechnology, and genetic, biological or genetic technology explosion as well, GNR.
Do you consider yourself to be a well-educated person?
Educated?
Yes.
Probably. I mean, yes. No, I can say I consider myself to be an educated person.
How did you get there?
Become educated? Mm-hmm. I became curious. I looked, and we talked about this in our first podcast episode, but I looked at the world as magic, and I wanted to understand how all this magic worked, like down to atoms represented by like letter. Like, I don't know, the world just became magic, and understanding how the world worked means that I had the capacity to create whatever it is I wanted. So I became curious, and I wanted to learn. And I wanted to learn everything about science and technology that I possibly could, or that I had an interest in. So it all comes down to my levels of curiosity. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, I would like to come back to this in like 3 years and see how much more advancement we had in different tech spaces. I do think somebody is currently working on a educational LLM specifically to probably prototype and run in a specific school or a specific grade in a specific school.
Khan Academy has one for their platform.
They're working on it, and I would say
I would using OpenAI.
Yeah, and I would use that. Like, I would have Khan Academy take me through some course and see if I could.
Hell yeah! When it's available and open to the public, I will be paying. What's crazy?
And over fists.
What's crazy? Because a lot of people can't relate to this now, but you will. Oh, trust me. Wait, you will. Right now, I pay like $85 a month. Not in streaming services, but in AI tools.
Yeah.
$85 a month in AI tools.
Yeah, I do like 40 or 50.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's so.
And just AI tools, like people think I'm joking, even for my job. Like, I don't expect a long tenured career in my job, but I am excited about Microsoft releasing Copilot, and I will give Amazon money for the entire suite. For the entire suite, if it means I can use it easily at my job, because the amount of productivity I'll be able to acquire and skills that I'll be able to develop by using any level of Copilot that comes out, whether it's for Microsoft, Adobe, or Google has a Copilot that will be coming out for its Google
I've
suite.
already tried it.
You've tried Labs, but they have like an official Copilot suite coming out. Like, I will pay money for it because the amount of productivity you get from it. And we're not even talking about the financial Copilots that come out for financial services. Like Robinhood. I need people to understand how history played out. Robinhood came out, which opened up investing to like all the small guys, and so you're going to have financial tools that open up for anybody who's willing to throw $100 into an AI and have it.
Yes. What happens when
invest and manage and understand risk and pull out? Like, people are going to be making money, a lot of money, if they utilize these tools, and not just for the stock, but you're going to have the same thing on decentralized platforms, decentralized finance platforms, with crypto as well. And it's just going to be an interesting time, and there's going to be those who keep up and use these tools and those who don't, and they're going to miss out on the big booms. So
Rocket, the app Rocket Money Rocket or something like that, where if they incorporate an AGI into that, and it takes like $50 or something out of your savings account, and you guys actually talk through a plan, and it reallocates the savings to different buckets, and it does all this for you. Oh my God. It's, again, as a product person, I would say humans are willing to completely give up privacy concerns for convenience. And these tools that are coming out are just going to make life so much more convenient.
I wouldn't say humans. I'd say Americans.
Okay, that's fair. The culture that I am part of is an American culture. But yeah, for convenience, it will just make things so much easier.
Is there anything else?
I don't have anything else to discuss. I thought you were going to talk more about the future of what's to come with VR and AR and AI and education.
I mean, no, I don't have much to say. We've covered most of it and change. I mean, what the school system is now, what changes you can make, what it will probably turn into. Like, there's feedback loops, and I think everybody should understand this. Like, the effect of technology on society will cause both to continue to grow and evolve and change. So, I mean, we're talking about the impact of a decade, and we're talking about large, significant 10 years, a large, significant increase in the amount of intelligence, knowledge, and applicable experience that students will have. I mean, in the next 3 decades, by 2050,
What year are we in?
2023.
So we have 17 years until we escape light velocity.
No, we've already started. So like we're saying that the singularity is actually going to, some people predict it'll happen by 2033. Some people say 2039. Ray Kurzweil's initial prediction was 2049, which is the one I'm sticking to, even though he's reduced his time now to 2039 instead of 2049. But we've already started hitting escape velocity when it comes to extending our lifespan. So like at this point, the technology is being developed, if it doesn't already exist, that can extend a human's lifespan by 2 months, by 6 months, by 9 months. And then overall lifestyle changes that people make today also influence that. So like currently we do have the research to show that a lot of people, like we ate food, but were we eating the right food that allowed us to constantly replenish the vitamins and minerals that we didn't have? We're going to the weight room more. I mean, we're going to gyms more to weight lift to create stress on our bones and improve muscle functionality. So like we're doing things now that already extend our lifespan. And then you have a boom that's coming with, like I said before, biotechnology, genetic engineering, that will continue to allow us to increase or add years to our life, months, years. So we already entered this escape velocity for the amount of years we can add to one's life. You just won't know it until you actually realize, oh shit, I'm 105 years old and I still feel like I'm in my 50s or 60s. So yeah, it's we've entered that point already.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you, Sapiens, for joining us in this episode.
We should talk about NVIDIA
in this episode of Future Conversations with Nerks. See you guys later.